So in the presentation, just so you know, I know I'm going to go like put pictures back in, so I haven't done that yet. So we'll kind of focus on the words and that kind of stuff today, okay?
Whoa. I know I'm going to go.
Okay, so now the audio's on, so you're hearing, I just turned off my phone. So you should be hearing me, you're hearing me through Webinar Jam, not through Join Me. Which means I also can't hear you. So Ralph, why don't you text me? Are you out there? Hopefully you're hearing. Or I'm also watching your screen share. I can't dial in because of the audio, because we have two audio feeds and we get this feedback. Because once we go live, our microphone, that's connected to the presentation computer comes on. You're typing something, oh, my cell, let's see. Okay, well, let's see if this works. I'm going to put the headphones in. So obviously you're seeing the screen and hearing, right? Yeah. I can't read that. The print is too small when you're typing in there, Ralph. I can tell you're typing stuff in, but I can't read it. Yes, we hear. Okay, I'm working on it. Can you bring up in your screen? I need to find the, maybe I have it somewhere. I need to find the phone number to call into. The Join Me. Okay, I think I got it. Yes, I can. Say something else? No, I'm not hearing you.
All right, so I was able to be a guest. I'm joined on your in your presentation.
Okay, so I'm going to turn my cell phone off then. Okay, yeah, so we can hear you.
Okay, so Marlo, you can hear us, so that's good. Marlo can hear me, she can't hear you, but that's okay. All right, Marla, you want to drop join me? Okay. Yeah, go ahead, drop off, Marla. We're leaving. Well, I'm gonna leave join me on for the screen view, but the audio, I'm gonna log off the conference bridge. Yeah, and Marlo, if we get stuck, look for me in Slack, or also keep an eye on the chat pane, Dave, in join me on your other computer, and also in the chat pane for the thing. So that's the way we'll communicate.
Okay.
All right, so as you can see, I'm on here, which is interesting because I don't want to have myself being viewed like this the whole time. Can you guys see my little video image down at the bottom right on the thing? Do you see that?
I'm just all I'm showing. Well, let's see. Yes.
Let me see if I can get rid of that for me.
Oh, now you're full screen.
Okay. All right, so Dave, I can hear you very clearly. It's like we're talking normal. So
Okay, yeah, I hear you very well.
okay. So yeah, on the top control, you can see on my screen here, if you look on your laptop, there's where I can mute myself. So you can actually, if you had a camera on your computer, you could actually be able to show
Right.
the picture here. So what I can do is
Oh, you just muted. We can't hear you.
I'm telling you I can mute it while I'm muted.
Right.
So yeah, I can sit here and be on here with you like this, which might be useful if I have to, because I can jump in and ask a question, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Okay, well, this is a discovery. This is helpful.
So is Marlo? I'm curious what Marlo is seeing.
Yeah, Marlo, why don't you text us? Well, actually, I could actually get her on here too.
Because like I'm seeing you, and every time I talk, I pop up. Except since I don't have a picture, it's not me, and the presentation goes back and forth. But I'm assuming, the people out there watching the webinar are only going to see at this point what I'm screen sharing with them.
Correct. Well, I'm logged in on my other, so I can actually tell you, I'm logged in my other computer as a regular user, just like Marlo is.
Right.
And yeah, every time I talk, it goes between the slideshow and your presentation. So that's not good. That's not good at all.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Welcome. Okay, so what happens here, Dave, you can't see this. But what happens is every time you talk, my picture comes up and overtakes your presentation. So I have to fix that. So I think the answer here is I need to be muted unless I talk, and then it's going to show my picture that I'm talking, but it's going to shut down your look and feel.
I mean, I would think that it would. I ought to be, as I'm the presenter, I ought to be able to set it up to show whatever I want to show. I mean, I would think that would be a setting.
Exactly. There's some setting that's causing. Marla, do you see what I'm talking about, Marla?
Yes.
Marla,
So I think the thing to do here is, Dave, while you're presenting, Ralph will be on mute. That way, whatever's on your screen, that's the only thing that your viewers would see. Do you follow?
Yeah, I understand that. I think.
He wants.
Yeah, I'm just concerned that something's going to happen and it's going to start flipping around. Flipping around between things. And it would seem that there would be a way in Webinar Jam to be able to.
Yeah, this is a Google Hangouts thing because I've been on regular Google Hangouts and it does this. So I'm just I wonder. Yeah.
I've got a green bar at the top that says you are screen sharing. It's got one button that says stop. It has another button that says present to everyone. So maybe I click that and it stops this other stuff.
Okay, let's try it.
Okay. Okay. So I did that. So
Can you
you
try
are
to speak,
screen
Ralph?
sharing? Yeah, and presenting to everyone. That's not hopping around for me now.
Yeah, hold on a second. Give it. It's because on our screen it's a delay, so I can't tell. I'm talking right now to see if it does it. And
I think this fixes it. Your picture is no longer showing on the screen. I just have Dave's slide deck.
yeah, what did you do, Dave? That was good.
There was something at the top that said, you are screen sharing. Do you want to stop or do you want to present to everyone?
Okay. Yeah, and I'm seeing. Do you see on mine now on the Join Me thing? It says hide participants.
Yeah.
That wasn't there before.
Okay.
But look at I can actually look at I clicked on that.
Yep.
So now none of the people. So you can hear me, you just can't see me.
Right. Perfect. Okay.
There we go. So we just have to make sure we get this set up right. So, all right. So what did you just do? Like, let's make sure we can replicate this. So Marlo, write this down. This is.
So
I'm on it.
So I did I shared my presentation, and then, it gives this green bar at the top, and it says you are screen sharing, and then it gives you the option of stop or present to everyone, and I clicked on present to everyone.
Okay, I remember that now. Yeah. Okay.
And then there's the option of, show participants.
Yeah, and you can see how it does this down at the bottom versus. Yeah, so we just have to make sure that's clicked. Can you click on that too, where you can show participants?
Yes.
You're able to do that too? Okay, so me as a moderator, I guess I'm able to do it too. All right, so yeah, that's it. Good. How easy was that? All right, now we're ready, Jan. You ready?
Yeah.
I hope you had plenty of time to prepare. We gave you an extra 45 minutes.
Right.
Yeah,
Thanks.
wonderful. Yeah, are you okay time-wise?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I'm fine.
Okay.
All right, so let's go and let's just do this, and then we'll deal. I'll deal with. I want you guys to do your thing and feel comfortable.
Right.
Level. Let me worry about me coming up with the questions and when I'm going to do them. I'll be writing this stuff down, and I'll come back to you and tell you on which slide I'm going to do what. And, or you can tell me I want you to do this, Ralph, on this slide, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So now, do you want me to do like last time? This. Me. I'm doing the. I mean, I know we want this, but I'm thinking 10 minutes out to give us more time. I say I go over this slide, then you go to the next slide, and I say we're 3 minutes out or 5 minutes out. I don't know what the next slide says.
Right.
And then it goes into yours, and then then I'll introduce you and then hand it off to you. And then you introduce Jan. Is that how you want to do it?
So I think since I'm controlling it, it makes more sense that that I'm doing the talking, because then you'd have to tell me to go to the next slide or whatever.
Yes.
So I can do like 5 minutes out, 3 minutes out, and then
Okay.
And then announce Jan.
Okay, that's fine with me.
Let's kind of see how it goes. I mean, we did it. Yeah. So I was planning on being like the host in the respect that you were last time.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay, I got you then. I was thinking. Yes, I got you. That's right. Okay, let's go then. And then all I'm going to worry about is then these questions and coming up with some ideas here for that as we go here. So I would need to hear what you're saying to come up with some bold questions and stuff. So
Right.
Sure. But okay, so go. Why don't you, so I'll just it's in your hands. I'm just going to be your support then, and come up with questions.
Okay. Great. All right, so I'll have said, starting. So I need to.
And it looks good on our screens right now, just so you know.
Okay, good.
So I'm going to mute myself so this is realistic.
Okay.
And then, are you able to mute me? I'm curious.
I don't know.
All right. Chat unmuted. That's it. Anyway, let's not worry about that. All right, I'm going to mute myself. And Marla, you mute yourself. And then if something comes up in the chat pane, something comes up, I'll say unmute so we can talk.
I mean, I would expect. Everybody that joins this, if they have a microphone or a camera, they're not going to be able to talk, are they?
Oh, no. Well, this is how I did it, Dave. So there was a request to speak that Marlo and I did, and then I accepted the request.
Oh, okay.
So like right now, I can actually return myself as an attendee and remove the ability to speak.
Okay.
You see that right here?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Cool. Okay.
Got it. Okay.
So I'm just gonna,
All right. Okay, so we're going to jump into it. Thanks so much for joining our webinar today. This is Dave Hawes from Washington Christian Academy, and we are going to spend some time talking about how to chart a course to college. Before we jump into that, I'd like to share a little bit about our school. We are in Olney, Maryland, and are a K through 12 school. We've been around since 1960 and are serving the greater students in the greater Washington, D.C. area, providing, as we say, an education that is reverent, adventurous, and academically serious. And we'll have a little bit more information about the school at the end of this if you're interested in getting that. I'm going to also introduce our presenter today. It's Jan Adams, who has worked at WCA for many years. She is our Director of College Guidance, works with all of our students, particularly starting with middle school students and thinking about college and their coursework, and helps them and their families go through this. So she has lots of experience here at the school, has had 5 children of her own to walk through this with, and so she is a great resource to our families in thinking about this, and we're taking this opportunity to share her with you all out there. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jan and let her tell you about charting that course.
Okay. This is an important combination. The rigorous academic program, the 5 I's. Generally, when parents are looking for a high school experience, they know that they want a rigorous academic program. But what they don't always realize is that putting your child in that program does not guarantee success, the ability to transition into college and then later adulthood without the 5 I's. The 5 I's is something that we've developed here at Washington Christian to help our students understand that it's not about just absorbing the academics. There's a responsibility for personal growth that goes with this. Well, our goal is right here before us. Primarily, learning is a self-initiated process. That's what we're trying to bring our young students, our children to, this learning, understanding that learning is a self-initiated process. Discovering questions, pursuing answers, and then acquiring the skills necessary to work with questions and answers. This is critical. Here are our 5 I's. What makes your education work? Initiative, intellectual curiosity, independence, interest, and I like to say tying it all together is integrity. What you will do when you think maybe no one's watching you. But this is essential. So these, with your rigorous program, the 5 I's, these are the keys to being able to successfully navigate high school, college, and then later professional life.
Hey, can I stop you there?
Sure.
This is more of a coaching tip.
Okay.
And I'd rather do this now than tell you in 10 minutes. I think the introduction, you guys should start over again, and the transition from Dave to Jan. I think, and Jan, have you ever done a webinar before?
No. I'm just talking, as you can tell.
It's very different, and it's hard. It's not easy.
Okay.
Don't take this the wrong way. You're talking to a screen, right? So it's hard to think that someone's there in front of you. One of the best things you can do, and this worked well when I was there, is Dave. I sat across the desk from Dave, and I don't know if you're sitting next to him or across but to be actually talking to a person can be real good.
Oh.
The energy flows out of that. So my only thought in that intro was that you say, yeah, I'm so excited to be here. I read some really good information that I would play off like, I have 5 kids. They've all gone off to college, and here's some of the schools they've gone to, and I had to go through this process, and I've been in your shoes. So you kind of identify and have an emotional connection with the audience instead of just going right into reading your slide deck. So don't feel like you have to be robotic and perfectly structured, because the more real it feels, the more engaging it will come across through the computer. Does that make sense?
Yes. I think to some extent I was wondering about that, and then I'm wondering how much should I keep this very general, or is it okay to refer to what we do here at WCA? I already made one reference, but
absolutely. Yeah,
okay.
The context is that your WCA is offering helpful information to anyone that wants it, that's going to any school.
Okay.
But it's about WCA, so
All right.
you don't have to feel like it has to be a perfect scientific experiment kind of thing. Like it's okay to talk about WCA and any stories or anecdotal things you want to talk about from your experience. That only makes them trust you more as the subject matter expert. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So I would just recommend right now just to go back to the beginning of right after Dave, you do your intro to her, and then just work on that little segue, because that energy at the very beginning is one of the most important parts of the webinar. Otherwise, people will just drop off if it kind of feels like it's going to be.
Okay, I think also I'm going to do, I skipped the agenda slide, so I think maybe I can do that. That'll explain kind of the overview, then have you jump into it. And I was thinking also, like, this transition between responsibility for the 5 eyes. I would go a little bit, talk a little bit about what these meant, what they are, kind of behind it, and then I'll do a transition between that and the 8th grade. And say, okay, Jan, Jan works with as I said, with our students, kind of grade by grade.
Okay.
Jan, as you share with us, kind of grade by grade what is going on, and I think maybe a couple of places we could, I told you as we were talking about this, it would be a little bit more back and forth. So that's what I'm thinking of as I go through this too.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Let me move it back here. Okay. All right. Thanks so much for joining us this afternoon. My name is Dave Hawes. I'm the Director of Operations at Washington Christian Academy. And we're going to be sharing with you how to chart a course to college. We think about this, starting even in the middle school years. Our academic program starts before that, but it's important to start thinking about planning this course early. I'm going to share a little bit about Washington Christian Academy before we jump into the webinar. We are a K through 12 school located in Olney, Maryland. We've been here since 1960 and have had the privilege and opportunity to serve many families over that course of time, and as we say, we seek to provide an education experience that is reverent, adventurous, and academically serious. With me is Jan Adams. She is our Director of College Guidance, has served the school for many years in that and other capacities. She's the one that's on the front lines working with the students, working with their families, course selection, and thinking through their academic program here, but charting that course at the point that they leave here, so that they are going to be able to both get into and succeed in the college of their choice. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jan, let her tell you a little bit more about herself, and then we'll jump into the webinar.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Well, I have been at Washington Christian over 20 years. I have 5 adult children who have graduated from our program, and as I tell our parents, I'm in it with you. I understand fully what you're going through, both from the parent side and from the counselor side. Just to fill you in a little bit on the experience I've had with my own children, who are now all young adults. 2 of my daughters went to the University of Virginia. 1 went to Columbia University in New York City. 1 son went to the U.S. Naval Academy and is still an active duty Marine. And 1 son went to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. So I've had a varied experience personally, but a very broad experience with our families.
Great. Thanks so much, Jan. Let me talk about the agenda that Jan is going to cover for us today. We said really what we think of this is charting that course and planning what are you going to do year by year. You'll see that we do that. We have a plan for each of the grades, and we're going to talk about what happens in 8th grade through 12th grade. You'll see on the agenda something called the 5 I's. Well, that's a WCA term, and Jan's going to go into detail about that emphasis that we place on our students. She's going to share about AP classes. We always get questions from parents about what classes should they take or how valuable they are. Then some details about both selecting and the process of applying to college. And finally, a little bit of information about the tests, SAT and ACT tests. Sidebar, Ralph, we're getting some audio feedback. I don't know if you're not muted.
Yeah, I just muted.
Okay.
You hear it now?
Well, we hear your voice. Yeah.
Oh, I know you do now. But yeah, I was hearing it too. I just muted myself. So yeah, I'm going to mute myself. Just let me say to both of you, that was excellent, really good. Like, that's a totally different webinar. It just sounds engaging. Jan, I love your lead off. I'm in it with you. Like, that's the connection. And, that's perfect. So, all right.
Okay.
I'm muting myself.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. I don't hear that feedback we were hearing before. Okay. Now, with our agenda, I'm going to again turn it back over to Jan. Let her run through this for us.
All right, thank you, Dave. Rigorous academic program, the 5 I's. First, let me address this rigorous academic program. Most of us, when we're looking for a school for our children, and we are thinking about the future, we know we want them to go to college, so we look for that rigorous academic program. What we don't always realize is the ways that our children have to grow in order to take full advantage and understanding from this academic program. This is where we come to the 5 I's. Here's our goal. Our overall goal is helping our children become self-initiated learners. So learning is a self-initiated process. We want our children to be able to ask questions, pursue answers, and to do that, they have to develop skills. Along with this rigorous academic program, to be successful in the program, to grasp the learning, students have to master the 5 I's. Now, this mastery comes about as they proceed, particularly from 8th grade to senior year. So as they grow along each year, I like to go around and remind them at various points during the school year, are you still working on initiative, intellectual curiosity, independence, interest, and integrity? Initiative is that self-motivated, I can do it, I'm going to start it. Intellectual curiosity is exactly what it sounds like. I want to know this. What do I want to learn? What am I curious to know? I want to know how it works. Independence is similar to initiative, but independence is really that drive to say, I'm going to do this even if others do not. Interests we put into two categories. Interests are academic interests. So, for example, you might be more of humanities person, or you might be more inclined toward math and science. Interests, of course, on the personal level might be I enjoy soccer, I enjoy swimming, I enjoy piano. Students need to develop those interests beyond academics that they pursue passionately. And then over all of this is integrity. And integrity can be defined in a number of ways. I like to define it as what we will do or what a person will do when no one's watching. Integrity is that knowledge, that moral character that takes the engineer who's able to hack into computers, and he or she is wise enough and has integrity enough not to steal information from others.
Great. Thanks so much, Jan. We're going to cover now kind of the grade-by-grade program that we have here at WCA, and we think this would be a great year-by-year approach for families as they think about, what should I be doing now, what should I be doing next year, as they lead from middle school up through high school. So let's, although we start actually in 6th grade,
Right.
We're going to
Yes.
jump into this in 8th grade.
Right. Generally, of course, middle school is 6th through 8th grade, as Dave just pointed out. And the wonderful thing about middle school is students change so much from year to year. And these are skills, habits that they should be mastering or have mastered by 8th grade when they step off into high school. Because once the students reach high school, and I tell our students this, they're beginning to write in concrete on their transcript. But let's just back up. So in middle school, a great time for changing, a great time for growth physically, emotionally, intellectually. Here's what you want your child to master. Number one, study skills. These skills would be note-taking. They should be able to listen to a teacher talk and take notes. They should be able to organize their papers. And I always remind our middle schoolers that each one needs to discover his or her own best method for organizing. So some students need a binder, some students need folders, some students need spiral notebooks. Group work. Students need to know how to work with others in groups. That is a skill. Students need to know how they best study for tests. Do they need to make a list of the vocabulary? Do they need to rewrite their notes? What is the technique that best works for each student in studying for tests? Planning and breaking assignments into small pieces. Of course, in middle school, and we do this in the high school also, we help students break assignments into small pieces. But maybe some students need to break them into even smaller pieces. So that's an example of the kind of skills students should be mastering by 8th grade. Study habits. Study habits are distinct from skills. It's more what you might call our work ethic. Students need to have a committed place and time for study, a place where there's no distractions. And by distractions, I mean the cell phone, the television, social media, all of those distracting items. I had a great conversation with one of our recent graduates who came back to see us during spring break. And I was asking him, where do you study in college? He says, I go straight down the hall to the study room. I leave my phone in my room, in my dorm room. I go down the hall to the study room, and that's how I study. Students here under study habits need to create the habit of having a daily schedule for study. In our school, we have a block classes, so our classes don't meet every day. So students have to be responsible to have a schedule each day as they consider tomorrow's B day, tomorrow's A day. What do I need to have prepared? What can I do to work ahead for the next A day or the next B day? The next one is asking questions, and this is a big one. This is asking questions in class. This is asking questions outside of class with teachers. And a middle school student should be able to be willing to be part of the classroom dialogue by participating in a constructive way in class discussions. A middle school student by 8th grade should be willing to approach a teacher and say, I didn't understand this, can you explain that? Or what about this? You didn't talk about this. This is an important habit that will definitely be critical in high school and even more critical in college. Lastly, 8th graders need a future focus. Every fall we have a college fair here, and we have over 50 colleges generally come to our campus. I always make a very personal and direct invitation to our 8th graders. They need a vision for the future. They need to talk to college reps and get an idea of where they might be going when they leave high school.
All right, great. Let's move on to high school. So up into 9th grade.
Yes, up into 9th grade. The transition to 9th grade is the first major academic transition students will face. It is a huge transition whether you're in a big high school of hundreds and hundreds of students or in a smaller high school like what we have here. Why is it such a transition? Well, first of all, the student has to assume more responsibility. The teachers will not track down the student. They're not going to say, did you turn in your homework? Did you bring your books? Do you have the handouts that I gave out last week? Another reason the transition is difficult and challenging is that there's definitely a stepped up level of thinking. High school teachers don't want students just to recite facts. They're going to ask questions. They want to know, why does this work the way it works? So there's a level of reading that's deeper and requires more what we call close reading in high school. Students in the high school own their transcript, and students are writing their transcript. They're creating the transcript. There's a myth out here that 11th grade grades are the most important grades in high school. That's not true. 9th grade grades matter, and even if a student does not have the most successful year in 9th grade, we want to see a trend in those grades. So a student might have a difficult first quarter, but gradually over the year improve the grades. And that's what we're looking for, is that trend in the grades as the student begins to adjust to high school. Lastly, the student begins to write college recommendations. I have to remind myself and our students and parents that our teachers don't write college recommendations based on whether or not they like the student. And I'm going to say more about that as we get a little further along. But teachers are observing the student. And this is not oppressive. This is not negative. It's just that teachers will note, oh, this student seems a little immature in this way, or this student seems to be more mature in this way. Many, many times as I review the college recommendations which are written by our teachers, a teacher will contrast the way the student was in 9th grade with the way he or she is in 12th grade. And that is always a positive comparison, and we love to see that growth in our students.
All right,
All
great.
right.
So we are going to move from 9th grade up to 10th grade, sophomore year.
Sophomore year. Okay, we don't want the sophomore slump. Every grade in every course counts. And sophomores are comfortable. 10th graders are comfortable in high school. They're beginning to maybe get a little bit lax. So it's important that we remind them every grade and every course counts. 10th grade definitely should be growing intellectual curiosity. They should begin to have an idea of what they want to learn, what they're inspired to learn. This is where the idea of specific academic interests, more humanities, more math or science, this is where we should begin to see this develop and show itself. Definitely independence, less dependence on friends and what friends are thinking, more willingness to take a step of leadership. Exploring specific interests, particularly in outside interests, I like to remind students it's okay to say no. You don't have to play every sport, and it's fine to say, I prefer piano, I'm not going out for soccer. This is a time when these interests should be more discreet and a step up in pursuing them in passionate. And one thing about interests, colleges are not looking for students to have 20 things that they do outside of school. They'd much rather see you pursue 1 or 2 interests with passion and with excellence than to say, I did everything, because it's just not realistic. Visiting colleges, definitely along the way, I call it, when you're just looking. And a great example I usually give is in our area, if you go down 95 South, if you're going on vacation, it's easy to stop off and look at a number of colleges on the way. And you're just doing that. You're just looking. You're not under any pressure. But the student can ask himself or herself, is this a place I want to attend in a few years? And, of course, mom and dad are getting their own impressions as they just look.
All right, well, we're halfway through high school.
Yes.
Things are starting to heat up.
Things are definitely.
We get into 11th grade.
In 11th grade. This is where.
Hey guys, can I stop you for a second?
Sure.
This is going really well. I just had a thought. The 8th grade one where you said the questions to ask, or no, what questions to ask your child to kind of get them thinking. What I was thinking, it would be interesting to have a little slide with like 2 or 3 of those questions just written out on it.
Okay.
I thought that was really, really good. Like, and that's gonna, like, as you go, there's like lulls. If you think of, it's like this whole thing's like a play. It's like there's lulls in the, just energy and stuff. And so something like that where it's engaging. And I'm also, as you're talking, Dave, could you send me the slide deck for this? And I'm gonna look at spots to put some poll questions in. So I'm kind of getting a feel for this, but I'm probably gonna do a couple polls just throughout. And Dave, when you do your announcement intro, just know that our moderator is going to be asking some poll questions throughout the course of this. If you could answer them, you'll probably find some interesting answers to get a feel for things. So,
right.
All right. So that's just some thoughts there.
Okay.
Okay.
Great. Okay, so we'll jump back into 11th grade. Here we are, halfway through.
Halfway through.
Things are heating up.
Things are definitely heating up. In 11th grade, once again, we have a step up in the academic demand, definitely in critical thinking, definitely in the writing, and the broader philosophical thinking. It definitely steps up in 11th grade. In 11th grade, students should be thinking about an AP course, and of course the offerings are going to vary from school to school, Generally, in our school, 11th graders may be taking AP Biology or AP U.S. Government and Politics. So this, the demand in an AP course definitely steps up their workload. Students by this time should know whether or not they're being active as a student or being passive as a student. So an active student is that student who is asking questions in class or out of class. The active student is helping his or her peers by forming study groups. The passive student is simply that, just sort of sitting back, hoping the teacher is going to pour the knowledge into his or her head. College visits are essential at this time. I always urge our students to be planning a spring college tour where by this point they probably should have some idea of schools they would be interested in. Some of these schools have opportunities for a spring preview or a similar type program. Definitely by the summer of the junior year, some decisions should be made. The student and parents should be narrowed down to about 5 colleges where the student will apply. A summer jump start. This is critical. First, in preparing for the SAT or the ACT, and we'll say more about that later, and definitely the essay or the personal statement, which will be part of the college application. Both test prep and thinking about your essay, not even thinking about it, writing some drafts. These are great to do during the summer before your senior year, before you have homework, before you have the pressure of college admission deadlines. And in fact, we at WCA pretty much make that a requirement for our rising seniors.
All right.
Okay.
I was going to say rising seniors, 12th grade year, but a little bit about AP courses before we jump into the senior year.
Sure. AP courses, advanced placement, these are courses which we offer in our high school. In order to offer these courses, we have to meet the curriculum requirements set out by the College Board. So every one of our courses has been audited and approved, both as to the faculty member who's teaching and the course curriculum. Next, an AP course helps our high school students understand what college academic expectations are. And there's a number of ways this happens in an AP course. First of all, the courses all use college-level textbooks. So high school students then are exposed to the breadth and the depth of reading in a college text, which is dense. College professors don't break down assignments for college students, but in AP courses, we do tend to break down these assignments, but our goal is to help the student really own that process in dealing with college-level material. The student has to demonstrate subject mastery, engaged critical thinking. They have to understand the why of how things happen in this discipline. And then students have to dig into the subject, and they have to figure it out. One thing that we tell our students is, please know that in an AP course, a teacher will not cover in depth every topic. There are going to be some topics that you're simply going to have to read the textbook and do the outside reading, and you're going to have to figure that out. AP courses do have practical benefits. The first one is that you could get college credit. So if you take the AP exam and you get a 5 on the exam, most colleges are going to give you credit for that. But that's up to the college. So the score on an AP exam ranges from a 1 to a 5. Many schools will accept a 3. Some schools will not. And some universities leave it entirely up to the department. So you can get college credit. We've had students who've gone into college technically as sophomores because they've had so many AP credits. You can get a higher course placement. So, for example, instead of starting out in Biology 101, you could start out in Biology 201. You can satisfy core requirements with AP core credits. We have a student who knew he was planning to go to medical school, so he took the humanities AP courses so that he could satisfy that part of the core requirement at his college and open up more opportunities to take more science courses. You can add the opportunity to double major or to study abroad. You can even graduate early, but as I tell our parents, they don't do that. Students don't do that. No.
They want that fourth year in
right.
college.
They want that fourth year.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to jump into senior year. You know, you've got your essay draft done over the summer.
Yep.
And now, you know, the rubber hits the road. It's time to start applying. You mentioned before also, you know, we have our students come and actually they all meet with Jan. The parents and the students meet with them here at WCA either in the spring or early summer.
Yes.
And I know this because my oldest son has been through this. I also have a junior, so 11th grader this year. So we did one of those college visits during our spring break just this past week. But as Jan mentioned earlier, that she says you should bring, you know, on the order of 5 or so, you know, colleges to that meeting that you're thinking about.
Definitely.
So so share with us a little bit as we get into this, Jan. You know how. You know, there are obviously a lot more than 5 colleges out there.
Right.
And how do you narrow down 500 you know, or more to get to 5?
Absolutely. One fact about the United States that I love is that we have so many colleges and universities available to young people who want to go to college. And how do you sort that out? Large public schools, small private schools, Christian schools, non-Christian schools. I have some best fit factors. The first one is how do you assess or what do you believe is your child's understanding of biblical critical thinking and analysis? One thing that students have to be prepared to do is read difficult literature with challenging ideas, and as these ideas are presented, to ask, is this true? And to put it up against a biblical standard. We work very hard at that within our school. We do not shy away from difficult literature or difficult history or ideas or philosophies. We discuss them all because we want to train our students to think biblically. Now, this requires a maturity of thought that not all students have. And so there's a scale or a spectrum of where a student might be in this process. But a parent needs to assess and understand and guide his or her student based on their ability to think critically and biblically. Another important assessment is the child's maturity, or the young person, the young adult, the transitioning young adult. What about personal fortitude, social skills, emotional maturity? These are factors that can make or break a child in different environments. So, for example, some students who have a good fortitude, social skills, emotional maturity will do fine in that large public university because that student's going to be able to find his or her group and build a network, an appropriate supporting network, whereas some students will just feel lost and overwhelmed. Another factor is academic goals and interests. Does the school have the programs you are interested in? So clearly, if you're interested in humanities, you're not going to be at a technological institute. So that's a factor. Another factor is, what are those interests you have outside of school? So for example, I've had students say, I have to be able to ride horses while I'm in college, and I've got to be near a college where I can do that. Or if a college has an equestrian program, I'm all in it. I had a student tell me just yesterday that she was considering a very good school and some other schools that were also very good, but the one she was most considering had to do with the music program. She would not be a music major, but she wanted a school where she could continue playing her violin, and so that's important to her. Another thing to remember in this as we consider best fit, there will be a range of schools that are best fit. It's not just one school, it's a range of schools. So you're looking for a type of college or university. Okay, let's go on. Broad liberal arts study. Here we do encourage our students to consider the liberal arts study. It's the liberal arts where you learn to think critically, and then as you get into specific disciplines, you apply this this thinking that you've picked up in the liberal arts. So it's a way of thinking about how you study. The liberal arts teach you to make connections among disciplines and to see how disciplines work together. So even if you end up in engineering, you do need to be able to ask the question, how do I use my abilities as an engineer in history? Because engineering is happening in the real world. We're creating history as we live together. So then you need to have a sense of the bigger impact of what you're doing. One question to ask is, can I be happy here for 4 years? Also, yesterday when I was talking to another student, I asked the student, are you sure you want to consider this college? Do you want to be in a city? Some colleges and great universities are part of our great cities, and the city streets go right through them. That's not the kind of bucolic college campus that many people might have in mind. Do you want a rural setting? Do you want a suburban setting? Are you happy to be in a city where you can get on a subway and you have access to cultural events like the opera or concerts? So that is a factor. And I always remind our parents and students, if you go on a college visit and as you're driving to the school, if you don't like the neighborhood around the school, or if you just don't like the way it looks, you don't have to get out of the car. It's okay. Okay? And I experienced that as a parent. We drove to a school, and I could see my daughter's face getting more and more unhappy, and she said, I cannot be here. It's too isolated. So we just drove on. It's perfectly fine. Another question is, should I go to community college first? I hear parents say, well, my daughter could go to a community college and get all the basics out of the way. First, community colleges are great, and they absolutely have a place in higher education in our country. But community colleges are for students who are not prepared for a 4-year college. Most of us who work with students in high school programs that are designed to prepare students for college, we are preparing our students to enter a 4-year university where they will have access to professors with terminal degrees. They will have access to the facilities of the university, the entire university, the libraries, the labs, all of the resources that colleges make available to students for extracurricular activities. They will have access to top-notch advising. And most of all, they will have access to their peers. And their peers are also working toward that first degree, the BA, the BS. And they are working together. So they're creating a living learning community. Once again, I'm thinking about a student who visited. He graduated last year. And I was asking him also, where do you study? He said, well, my roommates and I, this is our plan. They have a study group, and they have a way that they, first of all, help each other, but they hold each other accountable. So this is a living, learning community together, not to mention being able to talk to a full professor in his or her office, being in small seminars. So we are preparing our students for that 4-year college experience, because it's not about checking the boxes. I'd be happy to take more questions on this because there's a lot more to say, but let's go on. How can you learn about a potential college? Many, many ways. First of all, you can reach out to groups that are on the college. So, for example, if you're interested in the journalism program, reach out to the student newspaper. You can definitely go to the college website, which is generally thecollegename.edu. You can reach out to a professor in a particular department. So let's just say you are thinking about chemical engineering. You can write the chair of the department. Generally, and I'm always surprised, they will write back. Definitely, you can go onto the College Board. If your school uses Naviance, as we do, Naviance has college profiles available. Definitely, though, the best way to find out about a college is to set foot on the campus, the on-site visit.
Great.
Okay.
All right. So you've narrowed down. You've got those, 5 or so colleges, and now
Right.
it's time to start the process and actually apply. So
Right.
Dan, run us through some of the
Okay.
important aspects of that.
Sure. The first thing you want to understand and make a decision about is early decision or early action. Early decision is a promise, a contract that you enter into with the college or university. And here's what it says. It says, if I apply early by November 1st, November 15th, the college will tell me early, generally before Christmas, whether or not I am admitted. And if I am admitted, I will attend this college. Now, I might not know about my financial aid, and I will withdraw applications to other colleges, and I understand that my college counselor, me, Mrs. Adams, that Mrs. Adams will not send transcripts for me to other colleges. So this is a contract. Early decision is binding. Early action is non-binding. The student must apply early, generally by mid-November. The student will hear back early, generally by mid-December, but the student is not bound to attend the university, nor is the student required to withdraw other applications. Now, you may wonder, parents, why anybody would decide for early decision. First of all, there are actually some of our students, and I have some of these types of students among my own children, who say, I can only go to this college. This is the only place I want to go. This is the only place I want to be happy. And in the face of understanding that it's binding, in the face of understanding they may or may not have much information about financial aid, that child still presses on and wants to apply early decision. The good thing about it is that it is completely over, and it is over. For our students who apply early decision, I always remind them that, okay, we're done. I'm not sending out any other transcripts for you. So that's usually the student who chooses to use early decision. Generally, I as a counselor, and I did this with my own children who insisted on applying early decision, I will remind them that we're looking at a range of schools that are best fit and that they could be happy at other schools. It generally does fall on deaf ears. Early action, we definitely encourage that. In fact, at our school, we require every senior to apply to one four-year college by November 1st. Your application, this is the basis for the admission decision, and there are parts to the application. First, you put in your basic demographic information. Your essay is a very, very important part, which is why we require our students to start working on that essay in the summertime. Not only do we require them to work on it in the summertime, we review the essays before the application is submitted. The next piece is the transcript, and I've already mentioned this is written in concrete. It's written by the student. The student is responsible for the grades. The transcript, once it lands in the college's admission office, it's up to the college how they interpret the transcript. Now, along with the transcript, we have to send a school report which describes our academic program, our grading scale. All of this goes along with the transcript. Then, of course, as I've mentioned, we have our teacher recommendations, and the teacher recommendations focus on the student in the classroom and how the student learns, whether or not the student participates in discussions, and whether or not the student turns in work on time. So these are the essentials of the application, and of course there's the test scores, ACT or SAT test scores. This is an important note. Email addresses, Facebook posts, and tweets influence admission decisions. This is critical for students to understand and abide by. One thing in admissions now is students are friended by college students who work for admission. And in this process of opening up your Facebook account to an admission office employee gives the admission office another look at you. And the admission office is looking to see what they can understand about your character. An example that I have been sharing with our students and parents, it is a major university with very low admission rates, under 10%. The dean of admission told a group of college guidance counselors, I was there, he explained how tweets sent out by a student who was admitted under early action ultimately led to the admission office withdrawing the student's offer of admission. This is critical for parents and students to understand. If you're going to use social media, you need to understand that it will influence admission decisions.
All right. Thank you, Jan. You mentioned a part of the application process are the teacher recommendations.
Right.
And I think earlier you mentioned the students writing it. That's just been helpful for me to think about. Could you go into that a little more detail?
Sure. I said earlier that our teachers, and this goes for teachers at any school, teachers write recommendations not based on whether or not they like the students. We like our students. But, for example, productive class discussion, that's on the left here, a little bit further down. A teacher cannot say that a student is engaged in productive class discussion if the student never raises his or her hand or never takes the class discussion in a positive way. So that does not have anything to do with whether or not the teacher likes the student. So it is the student, it's the student's engagement with the teacher, it's the student's presence in the classroom, positively or negatively. It's the student who's responsible for his or her recommendation. Teachers are making observations. Another one I point out to students is reaction to setbacks. You might be a brilliant student in the classroom, but what happens if the discussion doesn't go your way? You might be actively engaged in the discussion. Or what happens when you don't get the A you thought you should have and the teacher explains why you got a B and you stomp out of the classroom? So these are ways that students are revealing their character and their preparation for an academic community where they're going to have to receive criticism, they're going to get comments, and they're going to have to engage with their professors. So in this sense, I want students to understand that it's what they do in terms of doing their work on time, being a motivated student, displaying integrity. It's what they do that teachers are asked to comment and affirm.
Yeah, we've seen in discussions with families so often, and students, think about the admission decision and the process as a formula that colleges have. You plug in a grade point average, you plug in a test score, and you plug in a couple clubs you're in, and this is the teacher recommendations and the essay that Jan spoke about earlier are always big pieces that we know college admission offices really look at. So and that's something again, demonstrating these kinds of qualities over the course of that 4-year career in a high school. Isn't something that can be made up in 12th grade at the point you look at this and then think, oh yeah, these teachers have to write a recommendation. So
exactly.
So we set this before our students, kind of starting at the beginning of their high school, and think, as we've said, how are you as a student going to write your college recommendation? And it's going to be based on the day in, day out way that you think about your education and interact with the faculty here.
Oh, absolutely. We've seen students who have demonstrated remarkable integrity in very small matters which teachers write about in these recommendations. So the colleges are looking to the teacher recommendation to give that fuller view of the students, and I have been just amazed at how effectively our teachers do it and how consistent our teachers are in their observations of the same student. I can't even think of a time really where we've had 2 teacher recommendations that were at opposite ends of the spectrum. Our teachers are very generous in their recommendations, but very honest and accurate in their assessment of the students' qualities.
Great, thanks, Jan. All right, well, we have one more topic to cover.
Okay.
Thanks for hanging with us out there.
Okay.
We get lots of questions about the standardized testing for colleges, SAT and ACT. So could you share a little bit of that information with us, Jan?
Gladly. The first question I usually get is, what is the difference between the SAT and the ACT? The SAT is a reasoning test. It is a critical thinking reasoning test. So you might think of it as the SAT is asking, what do you know and how do you think about it? So you're asked, what do you know and how do you think about it in reading, evidence-based reading, which we see on the new SAT, mathematically, how do you think mathematically and critically? The ACT is a test that asks, what do you know? So it's a much more subject-based test than the SAT. Some students will do very well on the SAT, not so well on the ACT, and certainly opposite. Here's the next big question: when should I take the test? We recommend that our students take the test in the fall of the senior year and take the test twice, no more than twice. We don't encourage students to take the test to practice. There are other ways to practice the SAT or the ACT, but we recommend using the summer of the junior year before the senior year to do your test preparation. And just a note about test preparation: you cannot cram for these tests. What we mean when we say test preparation is test-taking skills, understanding how the test is set up, understanding what the test is asking you. It is not an opportunity really to develop your vocabulary. You're not going to expand your vocabulary in one summer. It's not really enough time to develop the critical thinking skills you need mathematically or in reading and in writing. These are all skills that are developed over the 4 years in a rigorous academic program. So kind of right back to our first slide, that rigorous program should be developing these skills. So when you start reading these long paired passages on the ACT or the SAT, that is just second nature. You know how to analyze. You're not going to learn that in that test prep summer. That being said, everyone needs to do some test prep. It's not necessary to spend thousands of dollars on a test prep course. I recommend that our students use the published books by the SAT or the ACT and set out a schedule and work at it every day doing practice tests. My experience is that students who have achieved perfect scores are the ones who self-practice throughout the summer before senior year. I think I already answered this test. How should I prepare?
Right.
So, okay.
Great.
Questions?
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jan.
You're very welcome.
That's a lot of information, but we sure hope that what we presented was helpful. We're going to check our time and our the chat board in our software here and see if we have any questions. Okay, out there, Ralph?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear
Okay.
me?
Yep.
Okay, good. Yeah, no, I really like the content. It's really, really good. My only concern is how long it is.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, as you just, I'm almost wondering if you guys can like may break this down into like 2/3 and 1/3, like the SAT stuff, and like almost have a second follow-up on this.
Okay.
I mean, I just know from research and just general, it has to be under 30 minutes to really.
Okay.
It's now the other side of it is this though. We're not doing so. I'm gonna argue against myself here. Okay? So the other side is we're doing this on demand, and people might really appreciate the thoroughness and being able to watch this, in chunks as they want. And it might have my guess is this might get really well received within your parent community, your existing community. So I don't know. I mean, there's like from a lead generation standpoint, I would say it needs to be shorter.
Mhm.
From pure content and quality of content, I think it's fine, and it's something that's going to be out there. It's almost like a seminar, but I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I was thinking it probably went longer than
Mhm.
you know the interest, or not interest, but
Right.
attention span. That's what I was
Right.
looking for. Yeah, attention span of folks out there. I think so. My one idea would be to since the target is really like middle school students, maybe cut down on some of the technical stuff toward the end. Applying and give it more as kind of an outline of these are the kinds of things. So maybe take the level or take the discussion that Jan had up one level for some of the slides in that last half dozen.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean we do this is obviously part of this is made from the presentation that we give to 10th and 11th grade families, so they are looking for the detail,
Right.
That level of detail. But in this webinar, I think some of that, if I was a parent of an 8th grade, it'd be good to know just in general, like
Right.
the SAT example. Okay, there's a reasoning test, there's this test, that's different. Some of the I don't know. So that would be my thought.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I also think like you almost could do part 2 to this, like, and it doesn't even have to be like right away. I mean, you could do it later.
Right.
Like how to prepare your middle school child for the SAT. As they go, and how to prepare your 9th grader for the SAT, and then you get into like they need to understand what the SAT is. You need to understand how it works and how it plays into the college admissions.
Right.
So all the stories you told, like, and then you could have that as part 2, so you could just kind of cut that all out and just. I agree with you, like focusing on like Jan, it's more about those parents that come in and like I don't know how to talk to my kid about college. I mean, I think if you focus on that issue,
Okay.
and really just dive deep and maybe tell some stories with that, like don't change the whole presentation, but just like Dave's saying, just really focus on that middle school years and parenting and like what do you talk about? Like I don't even
Okay.
like that's very. I mean, I have an 8th grade. I have several teenagers now. It's getting a little crazy, and so those, and I'm a good buyer persona for that. So I just think if you can kind of maybe you guys decide cut it off and then just make it so it really has this middle school centric. Then it's not wasted though. We can still do part 2, and we can schedule that. Dave, that's not a bad thing to maybe schedule that before the summer comes. To even have that in our back pocket because it's another piece of content that we could use in a workflow.
Right. Yeah. Again, I think as I think about what we're not, I don't see us being interested in a piece of content that's going to attract 10th and 11th graders, because we're not going to get them at the school. We're not going to get people applying, or they're going to just be a small handful. So.
Well, here's how I understand that, but it's not a direct. There is a direct one-on-one correlation from that standpoint, but I'm also thinking more tangentially. Like when I hear you guys talk about the thoroughness that you prepare the kids for, in the 11th and 12th grade, not necessarily that you're talking to an 11th and 12th grader, but the fact that parents that are younger, like who are like you guys have a lot of PhDs and master's degree people in there. They want to know if you're going to prepare their kid for college just as well as they would. You know what I mean? And what I heard when you were talking in that 11th or 12th grade, that was very clear. Like I'm like seriously, like I don't know any school like you guys that does this, and I'm around. I get around, and it's really impressive. And so I think having that out there is not a bad piece of content. It's just something we can do later, and it doesn't need to be, it might be something to do in the fall too, just kind of that fall period, like. So, but anyway, yeah, I agree with you though. We wouldn't necessarily use it to try to attract 11th and 12th graders, but it could be used to attract families that are thinking about their kids a little more seriously and they're at another competitive school that, so anyway, you get my point.
Yeah. Okay. I think so. Maybe what we'll do is Jan and I'll spend a few minutes kind of going back through this, and kind of figure out what we'd want to do here. But I would guess we'll probably hit somewhere in between. So, it'll probably be on the order of 30 to 40 minutes. We'll keep it. Make sure it's way under an hour. I think it got close to an hour, didn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we'll, but I think, and then after we do that, I'll update the slides, and then I'll send that out to you, Ralph. Okay.
Okay, great. Yeah, and I'll just do some poll questions towards the beginning, and I'll basically before you introduce Jan, I'll have some poll questions, and I'll set them up. I have to set them up in the other. We're not logged into the actual live one. So I'm going to set them up in there, and then I'll email those to you, so you're at least aware of them, and then and then you can point, you can be the one to point them out. So there's not a third speaker. That would be kind of weird, right? So I don't want people to hear my voice. There's too many people speaking. So and I would just post the poll question. So you would just need to know.
Right.
So maybe what you need to do is create a slide that says, we're going to have some poll questions throughout the course of this. Here's our first one, and then the first one's going to be this. It's, how many of you have had the conversation? At what grade? I'll have it, but this is more or less how it. At what age did you have your first conversation with your child? What grade was he in when you had your first conversation about college?
Right. Okay.
All right. And then,
right. So then we'll talk about this tomorrow, but you could, email me what are the questions and where you think they should fit, and then I'll interject the.
Yeah, and it's not like you have to announce each question, because I can do them throughout the. Part of it is like people are listening to this, and their brains go in different directions.
Right.
Great as the content is, that you just tell them, like, throughout the course of this thing, there's going to be some poll questions up. Please make sure you answer, but you don't have to interrupt every time.
Okay. So I'll just start at the beginning. Okay, great.
Yeah, so it'll have multiple things like engage. It's all about engagement and keeping.
Right.
I like it when I do webinars and they put those questions up there.
Yep, I always hear that.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, cool. I think we're good though. Somehow we made it to this far. So.
Okay, so what time should we get online at like noon? It's going to start at 12:30, right?
Yeah, I think we should plan to have that first slide up. Let's all log in and be logged in by noon, and then by 15 minutes we have that first slide up and we're press play. So.
Okay.
And if any bugs come up or you want to do it earlier, let me know. So.
No, I think that's good. I mean, I'll do the technical part, get it set up in here, so then Jan can just come in, closer to the time that we push play and get started.
Yeah, and it doesn't hurt to have it up 30 minutes before too. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
It sits there dormant anyway. So.
Right.
All right. Good stuff.
Okay. Great.
Okay,
All right.
thank
I'm going to
you.
click stop broadcast.
All right. See you later. Bye bye.
All right.